Please give a nice warm applause for Mr. Chris Wiltsee. Thank you again for being here, Chris. Some people in the audience may not know exactly what BandPage does. I know, and people who are very active in the music industry and active on social networks, they know. But could you give us just a brief description of what BandPage does for those who do not?
What we've been focused on for the last 2 years is essentially helping bands or the artist connect with their fans, but not just on one social network, but across what's becoming a more and more fragmented digital space.
One of the things that I recall so vividly in doing music business seminars for CLA for the last 10 or 12 years is the phrase, the leveling of the playing field, especially around the turn of the new millennium. There was so much excitement about, oh, the playing field is going to be leveled. The internet is going to make artists empowered. So do you feel that the playing field now is officially leveled, and if so, why?
It's ironic. It's yes and no. Now more than ever, it's a hits-driven industry. It's a singles industry. It's a hit industry. And so when, like I work with Shazam, and it's all about that Hot 100. And the top 100 artists on any platform, Spotify, iTunes, I'm sure it's the same, Shazam, whatever, are driving the vast majority of the traffic and the interaction, much less the top 1,000 artists. So more than ever, there's a concentration of focus on the hit makers. But that's balanced by a couple of things. One is because of the fragmentation, because of the access, you can pay $10 a month and now have access to all of the music virtually. It's easy to, for more bands to achieve a modicum of success. And I think that's much, much easier. I was talking to one of the promoters at Another Planet, the big concert promoting company here in the Bay Area, one of the best in the country. And they were saying there are fewer bands who can play the Fox Theater, but there are more bands who can play the Independent than ever before. So I think that has to do with the fact that there's more access and more access to discovery through all these different services, SoundCloud and Pitchfork and you name it, that bands can find a couple thousand fans or even better, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 fans, and be able to build a career, maybe not become rich or supremely famous, but have a fan base that supports them and be able to build that, cultivate that, and stay connected. Play tours, to small and mid-sized venues, where before, the challenge when I was kind of getting started was about access to distribution, was about getting your stuff out there. That was where everybody was struggling, was to get your stuff out there, and everything was sort of controlled. Radio, everything was very controlled. Now, you can put a record out on YouTube, and it resonates and starts getting shared, and all of a sudden you've got a runaway hit.
I remember so vividly, music artists would say, I want to just get my music out there. I never knew exactly where out there was. But now, anyone could put their music out there, even as they sit in the audience right now. So in terms of leveling the playing field, getting it out there and getting it heard, what is your recommendation for those artists who now feel like, I got it out there, and so now what?
That's right. Getting it out there is not the challenge anymore. Getting it out there was the challenge 10 years ago. Now, you can pay $20 and get it out there, and literally get it out there. It's going to be on all the services. You can use, TuneCore, CD Baby, or DistroKid or something like that, and very cheaply get your music distributed. Get it onto YouTube, where 70% of the streaming that happens on that one platform, which is incredible in terms of volume and access. So then the new challenge is, how do you stand out? How do you draw attention to your work? And so, again, the way things come full circle, in a way, I think it's more important than ever that your quality, the quality of your work, is so important. Because, again, getting it out there is very low barrier. So now you have to have an original vision, you have to be creative and clever, or bring something that is truly standout. It could be funny, it could be just amazing.
So what I want to know, because we have so many people in this audience who want to do music for a living, and you mentioned TuneCore, and I just read recently that TuneCore estimated that 99.9% of music artists cannot make a living doing music. So when we talk about music getting out there and people recognizing it, and I'm hearing some very high quality independent recordings now, leveraging the digital space, being able to turn that quality you talk about into profit. What do you recommend that artists do now that they didn't do 5 years ago, since they have such a plethora of social tools available to them now?
And so you're touching on the thing that we're kind of like a laser on at BandPage trying to solve. And frankly, the music industry is a little slow to have solved this. I think it's just about to be solved in many ways. There's about to be a lot more opportunity to generate revenue as an artist. It's been really hard over the last 5 to 10 years, and it's, continuing to be really hard. There were some statistics that just came out about studio musicians in LA and how, what a terrible year they had, because now more and more people can record on their own, and, so there continue to be places where in the industry we're suffering so much because of the loss of retail, of records, basically, of CDs, and because of music being streamed, and just the relative drop-off of royalties to artists for their work. The way we're thinking about it is kind of different, and if video games and online mobile games in particular, the kind of games that people are playing on their phones now, like Angry Birds or whatever.
Like Kim Kardashian's game?
Exactly. Not that I would know. But,
Right.
but the gaming industry has solved for this, and they've grown their business in the order of billions in a very short period of time. But it's very much the same phenomenon. So if you give me a minute, I'll explain what I mean. It wasn't long ago you would go to a store to buy a game, and you'd buy a cartridge or a disc, and you'd bring it home and you'd play it. The only thing that the game developer, the company that made the game, knows is that a unit was sold. Because you get home, you put it in your console, you start playing it. They don't know if you played it once and thought, this game's terrible, I'm never going to play it again, or if you played it every day and you mastered the thing, and and it became a huge deal in your life. Now, because that game is on your phone, they know exactly what you're doing with that game. They know how often you open it up and play it. They know how good you are. They know whether you're getting addicted to it. They are modifying that game in real time based on what you and the other players are doing. Where are we losing people? Where is it falling off? How can we tweak it to get them more hooked? What are the messages we can push out to the phone to say, hey, come back and play the game some more? How can we, for 99 cents, help them jump over that wall that's going to let them, get to the kingdom and get the gold, or whatever it is, and turn that into a money-making entertainment. Billions by doing that. It's the same things happening in music, where you would go to the store, you'd buy a CD or buy a record, take it home. The only thing the record company and the artist knows is that a unit was sold. Right. They don't know whether you listened to it once and hated it, sold it at a garage sale for a quarter, or if you wore that thing out, right? Now, because so many people are streaming on Spotify, et cetera, we know exactly what's happening. And so what we're doing is working to, create an opportunity or monetize that engagement that's happening around music. And there's no entertainment that's more engaging than music. There's more engagement happening around music than anywhere else, around any other type of entertainment. Just on a single platform, we're working closely with these streaming services. We'll look at a specific artist in a specific time frame within a month period, and we'll say, okay, let's go with this artist A. And we'll look at their top 1,000 fans, and we'll find fans who are listening to that artist 400 times a month, 500 times a month, 1,000 times. I don't even know where these people find the time. I could 1,000 times in a month hitting play on this artist. And so what the record business has been doing forever is treating all the fans exactly the same. So, it's kind of like, let's imagine that we're musical artists and this is our crowd at a concert. I have no idea who my super fans are, who is just, coming to know our band, who came along with a friend and doesn't even know what they're seeing, right? There's this whole mix that's happening out there. And so what we can do with the data is start to create out of a blob or a blur, create a pyramid. And we can find out who's in that top 5 or 10%, at the top of that pyramid, who's leaning way forward, who's listening to me 300 times in a couple of week period, and do something about that. Instead of selling them the same $10 album every year or every other year and the same $20 ticket, treating everybody exactly the same, why don't I reach out to that guy who's listening to me 500 times this month and say, how would you like to come backstage?
Right, so we're talking about a fan hierarchy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And building a business by using the data to say, hey, some fans are only going to spend $0 on you, and that's fine. That's great. Some fans are going to spend $10 on you. Awesome. And let's serve everybody, ideally, and let's find those 5 people who would, spend $1,000 if only they had a chance, to come to the studio to watch you record the next record.
Okay, so this is more along the line of analytics, right? And so a lot of independent music artists may not even know exactly what that means. Can we break this down a little bit more? Because what you're saying now is leveraging the social media tools. Can we break this down a little bit more for the artist in the audience who may not know exactly, has conceptually, here's what you're saying, but it may not know the specifics of what to do to leverage it?
Yeah, and that's the challenge is right now, we're working really hard to make it simple, to make it very actionable, right? So we're building these pipes so that we're going to work with Spotify and Rdio and Deezer and all these services and Shazam to be able to present, things that you want to present to your fans, present the right offer to your fan at the right time. So to this fan, we might present, a signed copy of the album or a signed poster for $10 or $15. And to another fan who we know is a super fan, who maybe we even have been able to match their purchase history, and we know that they are a big spender, we may offer them a $200 or $500 backstage pass, along that range. So that's kind of where we're going. What I think bands can do right now is, I think that mailing list that you see bands have been collecting forever is incredibly valuable and highly, highly underutilized. And so on your website, make sure that you are capturing that fan data. We have a simple website that BandPage offers. There's a lot of great tools out there. Whatever you use, make sure that you have a way to collect those email addresses from fans. Same thing at shows, collect those. And then what I would recommend that you do is build a simple spreadsheet. And you can contact me and we'll help you at BandPage with this. And we'll productize this over time, is connect those fans who are basically raising their hand and saying, I like you, I want to follow you, I want to know when you're coming to town, I want to know when you've got your next record. Tie that to who's buying your t-shirt online, who's ordering whatever it is that you have for sale. So then you can just simply look up by city or by top spender, so you can look at that fan base in an analytical way and not miss out. So many bands, and I'm guilty of having done this when I was in bands for sure, is people would sign up for my mailing list and then we'd forget to do anything with it. It would just sit there. That's the most valuable asset that you have is these fans who have raised their hand and said, please, tell me when you've got something for us. And to categorize those, tie those again to your other retail.
Right. It seems like, because you mentioned the mailing list, and I know even on a very fundamental level, many artists they know about the mailing list. They know they should have one. They don't know why. They may not know how to use it. But now with social media, the various tools that artists have at their disposal, at least they know how to organize them, how to access them. And when we talk about leveraging, leveling the playing field, leveraging the opportunities that currently exist, it seems like inevitably there is an entrepreneurial component that has been born as a result of this leveling of the playing field. So when I hear you speak, I hear business development. And so for the artists out there who may not be taking their career as a business, they may not be approaching it as such, what is your insight that you can share with them about approaching it entrepreneurially to make sure that they can develop their business to a point to where they can have a career as a result of that development?
It's so individual what an artist or a band's goals are. And so I think the first thing is to get really clear about what the goal is. What does success look like? And for some artists and bands, it's not very commercial. They're not commercially driven, right? It's an art project.
I want to stop you right there. I hear that, and, because once upon a time, I'm doing Face the Music later on. When I first brought Face the Music to this seminar, it was about commercial music. Because I come from a commercial music background, it's about making money. Okay, and so when they are not commercial, but they still want to make a living, there's a irony there.
At least a tension, right? A tension that exists for, I think, a lot of artists they're artists, and in a former life that was me, right? And so I think a lot of artists struggle with, I'm an artist, and I just want to sort of express myself and be true and be authentic and put out my vision in a very real way. And a lot of times selling, being commercial, it feels like they're totally at odds. They're diametrically opposed, and so for a lot of artists, it's fraught with tension. That taking their art and then making it commercially successful. I don't think it has to be, and I think there's a way to do that with a lot of integrity. And I think it just has to do with getting back to that first point I think that we made, which is make your art great. If you can, that's the foundation of everything we're talking about is. If you can focus on making your art great, everything else is going to be so much easier. And, I think we've all met artists who are working really hard on the promotion and the business side and doing all this, and the art is not great yet. And, it's painful for everybody, the artists and the people kind of getting that barrage of promotion, because what are you supposed to do with it, They need to go back to the workshop and kind of hone the craft and write some stronger songs and get a better product together. First and foremost, that's the biggest bit of advice, if I have any, is that.
So product development before business development.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
You got it. So once you've got that solid product, or just that art is ready, and you want to share it with the world, then what do? Well, then you've got a ton of options. And this is where, back to your point about leveling of the playing field, there's never been a better moment for the artist at that point than right now. Because you could, for almost no money, get your art out there. Begin to commercialize it if you want to, and to begin to connect with fans around it. Very inexpensively, promote to people who, through Facebook ads or other types of promotional tools, find an audience for that work. Because this song is sort of like this artist and this artist and this artist. You could put it out and then take out $100 in social ads that are going to send it to make that visible to fans of those artists and say, hey, if you liked this, you're going to like this. That's easy to do. And again, you're going to spend $100 and you're going to get, I don't know how many fans, maybe you get 25 new fans out of that. Now, what do you do with those 25 fans? And that's where I'm talking about making that list and really working that list so that, okay, maybe all of those were local because you were smart and you knew you weren't going on a national tour, and so you focused that Facebook ad on the Bay Area. So all those 25 people live in this area. So when you got your next show, you damn sure should be emailing those people and saying, buy a ticket and come out and see me.
Right, and see, cultivating that list takes time. And most of the artists that I know who are really dedicated to their craft, they want to spend their time honing their craft. They want to spend their time collaborating with other people to create that product. Through BandPage, have you noticed that artists are working in teams in order to do the business development that we're speaking of? Do you suggest they take that approach?
Sometimes there's a member in the band who's an entrepreneur, right? Because every band at the end of the day is, or artist, you know, if it's a single artist, is a small business, basically. It's a small business endeavor. And so if there's no one in the band who cares about this stuff very much, who's motivated and wants to figure it out and enjoys setting up a profile on BandPage and putting the music up on Bandcamp and getting an account at TuneCore and doing all that stuff that you probably want to do, then you need what I've heard referred to as the fifth Beatle, right? You get that friend in who does like this stuff and would love to get involved with the band and is going to set up all those accounts and be promoting on Facebook and Twitter and doing all that stuff. And essentially, they may grow into be your manager. But initially, you know, maybe they're just the fifth Beatle, and they're kind of getting to hang around with the band and help out, and then you kind of see where it goes. I think you need somebody, again, it could be the band themselves, or somebody who's going to be, you know, associated with the band to play that role and to spend the time, because it is a time-consuming effort, you know, that you're going to want to do. Mm-hmm. Then, once the ball's rolling and people are coming to shows and there's, you know, some buzz around your videos and everything else, once things are starting to roll, then, you know, then and only then do you sort of need to think, do we need a booking agent? Because we really want to go and do a West Coast tour, and there seems to be some demand for us in some other cities, you know, and that kind of thing.
Okay. So when we talk about crossing the digital divide, occupying this new space, it seems like perhaps maybe some of these roles can be repurposed. So the personal manager, which has often been misunderstood by so many people, what they do, maybe now crossing the digital divide for the DIY artist especially, perhaps maybe that manager can come in and immediately make a contribution in corralling these resources, developing the business in such a way to where it can be leveraged. Are you of the same mindset?
Absolutely. I think that's becoming a prerequisite skill set for anyone who's going to be an artist manager. And if not the manager themselves, they're going to have, you know, sort of a digital teammate, you know, on that management team who's extremely digitally savvy. You know, we work with all the big management firms at BandPage, and so we're, you know, constantly in touch with all the leading artist management companies, and I'll tell you, they're incredibly savvy, and this is where they, you know, this is where the core of the business is. Okay. And so they're spending all of their time keeping up with what are the platforms that are driving the value, and where's the best return on investment, you know, where can we connect with our fans the most, how can we build that list. Right. And so they're all about, you know, this digital realm. Okay. Because that's, you know, again, you can achieve so much at such a high, you know, basically it just takes time. You know, you don't have to spend a lot of money. The ability to leverage these platforms to your advantage is huge. And so what we're trying to do is get you in where you know, it's like on Spotify right now, or on YouTube or other streaming platforms, you may know you've got a lot of listens happening. You might see a video getting a ton of streams or views, but you don't have any way as the artist to know who those fans are.
Right.
There's no, it's like I can just see the sort of a shadow blur there. I know there's thousands. I know there's millions. I have no way to break through that wall.
Right.
And so I think the next frontier, and I think this is my prediction, and this is one that we're working very hard to drive into reality, is that the way that the streaming services are going to create the more value that they need to for the artist, because there's a real impasse right now in the business, in their business model, because they're not paying artists enough. They're not happy. It's causing a lot of backlash and a lot of frustration, and Taylor Swift's off the platform, and all this stuff's going on, right? They need to create more value for the artist. They've created a ton of value for the listener, for the fan. I can listen to anything I want, anytime I want. It's amazing. And I think the way they do that is they open that up, and they help the artist connect with the fans who are on those platforms.
So when we're talking about business development and all these analytics, because it keeps coming back to this, being aware of what's happening with your business affairs, understanding the what and the how, being able to predict the when. So if we look at this in terms of root cause analysis, and a lot of artists don't want to hear this type of stuff, return on investment, it sounds like a real business that we're talking about. And most businesses, they fail from the gate because they lack proper funding. I want to spend a little time talking about crowdsourcing versus crowdfunding, and I want to talk in particular about Amanda Palmer, the art of asking, okay? So for people in the audience who may not be familiar with Amanda Palmer, I'm going to let Chris kind of give a synopsis of who she is. And when you give that synopsis, I would love for you to talk about perhaps maybe some of the lessons that story provides, and some of the things that artists should be aware of in terms of that maybe the story does not tell.
Yeah, I think Amanda Palmer's story, and I don't know, raise your hand if you're very familiar with that story. So some people are. So okay, so she's essentially an independent artist, a successful independent artist.
1.2 million she raised.
Yes, and she's been the most successful, or at least maybe this was 2013, was the most successful independent artist crowdfunding campaign on
because
Kickstarter.
Of 1.2 million she raised.
On Kickstarter. She did pretty well. And so she sort of represents sort of this I don't want to say extreme, but one end of, an artist's willingness to sort of engage with her fans, to open herself up to her fans, and to offer really unique opportunities for fans and her to engage as a way of supporting her work. And so she did that through this Kickstarter campaign. And, basically like any Kickstarter campaign, there's a tier of offers, from low, you can get my record, it's $10, to high, you can come on stage and write on my body, and, I don't know what else, right? And that's $1,000. And a bunch of stuff in between. And what we've seen at BandPage, because we have this store where artists can offer anything. Again, that T-shirt, a CD, to we've had a ton of artists do backstage meet and greets, or even more unique experiences. Like we've had artists take a group of fans on a kayaking trip, like. Amazing stuff, or a collaborative artist projects where you can, the artist will say, you can send me any creative input and I will write an original song just for you. Amazing stuff. Some amazing bands do things like that. Some artists, and particularly, I would say there's a generational divide. Younger artists, I would say, tend to be more comfortable with and likely to do this kind of more engaged interaction with their fans because of the era that they've grown up in, where they're digitally native, where everything's it's a sharing culture through mobile technology. They're comfortable and they expect access to that celebrity culture. And so as the celebrity, they're even more open to it. I think of the generation above, the sort of the Radiohead generation, is used to the artist getting to be a little bit more like the Wizard of Oz. And you get to create this, aura and live behind the curtain, and there's value in that aura. And I think that there's a way to give the fans more access where you don't necessarily have to completely come out from behind the curtain. Some artists don't want to meet their fans. They just aren't comfortable. It's just not comfortable for them. And so there are ways to create other types of engagement, that might be unique and higher order than just the CD or just the ticket, that still fit into their persona. And so I think what we're recommending, and I think Kickstarter's been hugely successful, Pledge Music has been really successful, and I think the way that the artist store is shaping up on BandPage and will flesh out over the next year is you're going to see a suite of offers from that artist. And it should range from an introductory offer that maybe even is free, that is just an exchange for an email address. Again, getting them in the door, getting them on the list, getting them into your funnel, if you will. I'll speak about business terms. Free, low price, mid price, high price, exorbitant. And have that whole range. And as you get to know who your fan base is, you can help present the right offer to the right fan at the right time.
When I think about, this Amanda Palmer situation and the art of asking, and I watched the TED Talk interview before coming here today, it seems to me like she really had no issue asking for everything and anything that she needed. She needs food. She's asking for that on Twitter. So there is this sense of benevolence. So I understand, and we're talking about business development, and I think one of the key points today here is that your business, and right now, if you're an artist and you're not doing business development with the tools available or the advent of the social media tools that have been created, you're not really developing your business to the fullness. But I want to know, when we talk about benevolence of the fans, the altruism, at what point do we say, well, that's not exactly business development because the money is not actually being used for business? You see, there's this free culture, this free mindset, and I saw a lot of, although it was enlightening to read about the Amanda Palmer story, but there were a lot of people who had issues with it. A lot of people were taking her to task. A lot of people said, look, we want an accounting for what are you going to do with all this money? Because what we see you doing, it doesn't necessitate $1.2 million.
She was almost a victim of her own success.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. I think what it gets at, though, is while people may expect to be able to hit play and listen for free, maybe, I hope that more and more people will pay for a monthly streaming account. I really believe that is a strong part of the future of the music business. And if everybody was paying $10 a month, then actually more money would be spent on recorded music than it was in the height of the 90s CD era. And then there's still a ton that those streaming services could do to grow the pie, monetizing the engagement on those services. But, Could Amanda Palmer have done some things differently to probably avoided some of that backlash? Absolutely. She didn't pay the artists who went on tour with her what they should have been paid. There was a controversy around that. Things like that. I think it comes back to, really knowing who you are as an artist and what you're comfortable with, because a lot of artists aren't going to be comfortable with the ask. Right, the way that Amanda Palmer is. I think, I think it's very normal human behavior to be very uncomfortable with the ask. And it's a pleasant thing that most people are not comfortable asking all the time, right? And so I think the key is that we learn from her case is that fans, and we hear this all the time, fans are more than happy to support the artist. While they may expect to get that play button for free, if they love that artist, they want to see that artist succeed and they want to support them. They're happy to buy a concert ticket. They're happy to buy the T-shirt. They're happy to buy all kinds of opportunities and experiences around that artist. Right. But this is all being fleshed out right now, and it doesn't require an ask so much.
Right. And so when we talk about the digital space, and we talk about leveraging the opportunities, internet radio, a lot of songs being played, you know, in this celestial space. It really is very sad to hear about the royalties that are unaccounted for and unclaimed. And you and I had this conversation a couple of years ago about what was happening with Sound Exchange, and I was happy to hear that your company, BandPage, they were facilitators for getting at least, what, $2 million?
I think we've found it's over $6 million at this point. Maybe it's $8 million.
Of the $300 million that was not accounted for, right? Something like this?
Yeah.
Could you talk to them about this and ask them why they're not getting their money?
Yeah. So this is one of the great pleasures that we have every year, is working with the Sound Exchange. If you are putting your music out there, if you've got it on TuneCore, CD Baby, or other ways, you're getting your music out onto YouTube and Spotify and all the other services, you have to sign up for the Sound Exchange. The Sound Exchange is how the digital royalties are being, it's essentially the PRO, for the streaming services, right? It's counting up all of those streams, and at the end of the year, that's how you're going to get paid. And so every year, there are artists who are getting significant streams on these services, Pandora or Spotify or whatever, and they're not registered. And Sound Exchange they can't find these artists. They may look, but they can't track them down. And so what we'll do is we'll just do a match, our database to theirs, and say, hey, look, we found 40,000 bands that you owe money to that are using BandPage. Let's send them an email. Hey, so-and-so, you got $36,000. It's amazing to be able to send those emails out, and they sign up.
And they sign up. So, and this is, and we've been talking about this for like the last 4 or 5 years, and so this is part of the business development that we're talking about. But if there's not an awareness of this procedure and why it needs to be done, you can't profit from those rewards. We're going to wrap very shortly, and if people have questions for Chris, you can line up. There's going to be a microphone live in the audience. But before we get to that, my final question to you is, where are the big opportunities right now in the digital space? What should people be looking for and preparing for in the next year or so?
I think it's going to come down to, again, just hammering on a few of the points. I think where all of the engagement is happening, a huge amount of it's happening on YouTube, right? And so, you should have a good YouTube strategy. You should be thinking a lot about your content there, and maximizing that, building a channel, and leveraging that. I think getting your house in order from a business perspective, building that list, building up a sophisticated list where you know where people are from, and that kind of thing, and really just work on that craft. The other thing I would suggest is that rather than thinking in a traditional model as an artist, where traditionally musicians would release once a year or once every 2 or 3 years, however long it took them to finish an album, I would really recommend for most musicians to break that tradition, because in our modern world, a year is too long to be reaching out to your fans, but once or twice, once a year or once every 2 years. You should be releasing smaller releases.
More periodically.
Much more regularly. You should be releasing every couple of months. Instead of saving up 12 songs and dropping them all at once, you should be dropping 3 songs every 3 months, right? So you're constantly in motion, you're constantly in cycle, you're constantly having something new to reach out about. Because the truth is, we're all flooded we're all bombarded by so much information every day. If you give me 12 songs I've got to ingest, not likely, right? I might get to a couple of them, and then it's going to take you another year and a half to get back to me. Better to come at me every 3 months or 4 months with 3 new songs. And then we're in a constant dance together as musician and fan. And you can build that list, build that business, constantly be, progressing. Some artists need to write in big pieces. I wouldn't give that advice, not that I'm in any position to give advice to a great artist like Radiohead, but they should keep making albums. Like some artists think that big, and they should release that big. But for the most part, we live in a singles music economy. It's about that song, right? That one song. And so if you can put out one good song every 4 months, boy, you're killing it.
And so, and right before we go to questions that people may have, later today we're going to have a panel called On the Road. And so we'd be remiss if we didn't at least make some mention of the digital space and how it relates to touring and the performance opportunities that artists can now facilitate. Can you speak to the role that BandPage is playing in that?
Yeah, it's been really cool to be able to help bands, you can be so much more connected, I think, than you were 10 years ago, just with technology in general, not just BandPage, on the road. You can be, writing and releasing on the road. You can be engaging with your fans on the road. You can be kind of putting up, essentially through Instagram or other, social media services, keep your fans engaged and excited and anticipating the date that's coming to their city, by sharing so much more than you could, right, ever before. And what we've been doing through our experiences offer, which is part of our store, is helping bands to, again, connect with their fans along the route. And so we've had a number of bands who have really embraced that, and they'll add, in addition to the ticket that they're selling, maybe a $15 or $20 ticket, they'll have a private backstage concert before the concert, 20 minutes, acoustic, over some beers, hang out. They'll play 3 or 4 songs for 10 or 15 fans, and those fans paid $75 or $100 or $150. These artists are literally doubling the revenue that they're taking home on their tour by adding this one little component, right, that they can manage, or the manager can manage very easily. People are buying it online. They print out the list. They take it to the door. Okay, these are the 12 people you're going to let backstage at this time. Easy. And again, just doubling their revenue by doing what they love. They're playing music. They're getting to know some of their super fans. And that list of 12 in each city, and that's, again, what I'm talking about. That's the top of the dome. That's that,
the hierarchy.
That pyramid. Mm-hmm. Those 12 fans times the 20 dates that you're playing, that's a special group of individuals.
Nice.
You want to offer them cool stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Please give a nice round of applause for Chris Wiltsee.